April 12th, 1935. On the hill, coffee cooling, sheep scattered below. I do not write this for argument, nor even for resolution, but because my thoughts demand form. What else can I do with them? They press upon me in these quiet hours, clamor in the spaces my wife used to fill, and find their way to the page, though I don't know for what purpose, but I suppose a selfish one. There is a kind of certainty some men hold about God, firm and unshaken, like the stone in the old chapel at the edge of the village, the only church accessible for fellowship in the village, and it belongs to the Calvinists. They speak of election as though they understand its depths, as though predestination, according to foreknowledge, were not a mystery, but a certainty carved into the fabric of the world. Yet, I have seen certainty break. I have seen it shattered in the trenches. Puddled up in a red reflection, certainty has never sat well with me. Not after the war, not after my son, not after watching the unchosen thrive and my chosen fade. Romans 9 is their pillar. Jacob, chosen of Esau, passed by. It is said Esau was hated before he had drawn breath, before he had erred, before he had even lived. And yet, did Esau not prosper? Did he not father a nation? Did he not at last embrace his brother? If God's favor is marked by mercy, did Esau lack it? If it is true that he is no respecter of persons, then even Esau was held in his hand. I have heard men speak of predestination with certainty, as though they were born knowing the mind of God. But I have seen certainty broken in the trenches, in the letters that arrived too late. I have seen faith wrestled into silence where the most self-assured of young men fell, and others in an instant, never knowing whether in life's fate they were chosen or abandoned, just gone. I have also seen rise up from scorned and undervalued the most shakeable of sorts, buck against the wind, and take the victory with their own determination. So again, what about Esau? He was not chosen to bear the covenant, but was he truly abandoned? With all the times they bring up hate, they never bring up Deuteronomy 2:5, where it seems to show otherwise. When speaking of Esau's descendants, God tells Israel, "Do not meddle with them, for I will not give you any of their land, no, not so much as one footstep, because I have given Mount Seir to Esau as a possession." Even long after his death, 400 years to be precise, Esau's descendants remained under God's protection. If hatred meant absolute rejection, why did mercy linger over his lineage? I wonder if they consider truly the nature of Hebraic thought, how the words of Scripture were not always meant to be taken as cold and rigid absolutes. To the Hebrew mind, contrast is used to illuminate, not bind down and diminish. "You must hate your father and mother," said Jesus. And yet, to honor one's parents is law. To neglect your widowed mother is a disgrace, says 1 Timothy 5:8. It was never hate in the way we understand hate, but a comparison, a measure of devotion, not rigid logic, but layered meaning. This is not a contradiction. It is emphasis. It is contrast meant to sharpen devotion, to distinguish priorities. And yet, each Sunday, they preach as though hatred is simple, as though mercy is selectively portioned out. They speak as though it is settled, as though some men are favored and some are not, as though fate locks its jaw around a man before he even has a chance to live. But I have seen mercy move in ways no doctrine can explain. I have seen rain fall upon the righteous and the ruinous alike. I have seen men who believed themselves secure be brought to ruin, and men discarded by society be lifted in grace. I have yet to bring up the examples in the Scriptures. Does God hate nations? Well, God does judge nations. His opposition is always based on their actions, wickedness, and rebellion. When he declares judgment, he ultimately brings those nations to an end. However, in Esau's case, though God did not choose him for the role of his chosen people, he still allowed Esau to flourish and become a great nation. So in Scripture, we see how the actions of a rebellious nation brings God's judgment, and a man disregarded of birthright still flourished and protected. Is that not love? To guard the memory and lineage of a man 400 years after his passing. Perhaps it is only in solitude that these thoughts come freely. Perhaps it is only here, among my sheep and my coffee, that I feel permitted to question. The others have made peace with their certainty, but certainty has never sat well with me. Not after the war, not after my son, not after watching the unchosen thrive and my chosen fade. I do not expect an answer. Only that, here at least, the question may exist without condemnation